Welcome back from the break. You're still watching This Week, and we're reviewing the top stories within the outgoing week. The Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, NFIU, also in the week exposed the alleged funding of terrorist activities in Nigeria by the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, bandits across the north, and other terrorist groups through global crowdfunding online websites and on sports betting platforms. Surprisingly, actually, according to the Financial Intelligence Unit, IPOB received funds through affiliates in 22 countries that have registered at least 27 entities under the group's name. Now, the NFIU says 7 of the registrations were made in the United States, while 6 were in the United Kingdom. The Finance Security Agency added that over $160,000 raised by IPOB through crowdfunding was funneled to transmission, media and broadcasting companies in Bulgaria, South Africa, and the United Kingdom, while also stating that a betting platform simply identified as XC had filed a suspicious transaction report on a 24-year Nigerian customer from the north-central part of Nigeria who had received over 350,000 naira in his betting wallet, believed to be ransom money from a kidnapping incident. All right, joining us in the studio to take a critical look at the alleged terrorism financing by several terrorist groups as alleged by the NFIU is Dr. Ndubuisi Nwokolo, who is the managing partner at Nextier Security Consulting. He oversees Nextier Security, Peace and Development Focus. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what's your overview about all of this information that the NFIU is bringing to the Nigerian public?
Am I surprised? No, I'm not. I'm not surprised because the way both our financial system and our economic system is designed makes stuff like this very easy. For an instance, you might ask how many of our banks do KYC, know your customer? Yeah. How many of them? The way our financial system, as well as our political economy, is designed in such a way that somebody who sleeps as a poor man wakes up as a rich man, and nobody will ask any question. All we know is that he has made it. So it becomes easier for people to launder money. Now remember, money laundering and terrorism financing are 2 different things, but act in the same way. Meaning that I could be laundering money for someone using a bank, and you will see me as a genuine person. Likewise, somebody who is getting money for terrorist group doing exactly what I'm doing. The only thing is that you could now say this is money laundering, define mine as money laundering, but because you've done some investigation around the other person, you define his own as terrorism financing, but they are all like half as 6 and half a dozen. Now, in countries where things are done very well, if a certain amount of money goes through your account, the bank will flag it. Now, you might see intelligence agencies like the DSS, the police, other state institutions trying to find out how that kind of money came into your account. Do you have the capability to make that kind of money? They all come together. So you find out that what EFCC is doing, if we cannot back it with other aspect of fighting corruption, it will not work. So what we have in our system is a system where NFIU are flagging this. However, there are other areas, like you live here in Abuja, there are a lot of estates in Abuja, nobody knows who owns them.
Yeah, I mean, very empty for several years.
Yes, nobody knows who owns them. Do you know whether IPOB, Boko Haram, ISWAP are the ones who own it and they are using it to fund their activities?
Interesting perspective, actually.
So when you look at all this, for you to be able to flag, it's not about flagging, it's about actually flagging and being able to have the political will to go out there and fight. So, and for you to do all these things, you need to start from the basis. The basis is that your banking system should be able to do KYC and do it very well. They should be able to know their customer, right? That's on one part. 2, you should have a system where if somebody is a level 4 officer in an organization where he earns 100,000 a month, and he lives in a house of 100 million. How come? The system should be able to flag
several
it.
of them in Abuja here.
So
somebody
these are the
at that
system.
level, by paying rent of 5 million naira per annum
So
and all of that.
they all come together. So for you to be able to fight money laundering or terrorism financing, you must have an economic system, a financial system that ties together, equally tied to your own social security number. Meaning, he has worked for 10 years and look at what his earnings are. He does not have any other side job. How come he owns this?
Interesting perspective. So now let's talk about generally how these institutions ought to play within this system, because if you look at the NFIU and you see the what we already put in place, and then you now juxtapose it. I'm talking about the laws that will put that, look, if you're moving anything from $10,000 and all of that abroad, or even transferring 1 million naira and above within the domestic system, NFIU should be flagged and all of that. And then you now juxtapose it with what happened with some Nigerians being arrested and tried in the UAE for terrorism financing through Bureau de Change. How do you put it together? Because, I mean, it beggars believe how those people were able to play around the system through BDCs and all of that.
So you have two countries here, or you have two systems here, or two systems operating in two countries.
Yeah.
One has a developed system where everything works according to book. That's UAE. You have the other system where nothing works through the system. So for instance, if you're traveling through any of our airports, all they ask you is that, do you have this kind of amount in your hand? And you say no.
Even if you may have it hidden somewhere.
No one is interested. Rather, people are interested in the other aspect, what you have to part, right? So, and when you get into a system where these things work, you find it very difficult. Like if you travel to the UK now, do you know you cannot deposit money into my account? It's not possible. You can't deposit money into my account. If you have to deposit money into my house, you have to put it in your own account and move it into my account. So these are mechanisms states are making to fight issues of terrorism financing. Now, let's be honest about this. This is not a Nigerian issue. This is a global issue. Terrorism financing is a global issue and is a security threat around the world. So every country is fighting against it, because Nigeria is not the only country with terrorist group. They are all everywhere in the world.
I mean, there are multiple of them in the Western world.
So countries day by day are developing measures to reduce their impact, their activities, and they're able to curtail it. But that's where we are suffering. We are suffering because, one, we don't have the political power. Rather, we don't have the political will.
Yeah.
Because the political will means that for you to make an omelette, you need to break some egg. So meaning that there are my people who either you don't catch them under terrorism financing, you're going to catch them under money laundering.
Yeah.
So because they tie together, or you even count them because they are corrupt. So
and if they are members of your political party, God saves the person.
Exactly. So you see how they tie. So someone looks at it and say, okay, he has been donating money to our party. You know, if I go this way, it's going to affect members of our party. I'd rather not do it.
And I may be looking for second term.
Sure. So that's why it's difficult, because you have a country where the systems are not strong. So it shouldn't be about the president. It should be about the system. In the US, we saw how Biden was being tried by the system. Even though his father is a president, it was the system going against him.
That's Joe Biden's son.
Joe Biden's son. Is the system going against the ex-president, who was alleged to have declared more than what his asset is in New York, state of New York, in order to cut taxes and all that. It's the system. Exactly. It's the system that is fighting, not the person in power. So if we're able to establish our system where our DIA, Department for Military Intelligence, is working very well, the Nigerian police is working very well, the DSS is working very well, the Defense Civil Corps is working very well, the Office of the National Security Advisor, list 7 of them, including the National EFCC and the
National Intelligence Agency,
all working very well.
Yeah.
And there's a synergy between them. It becomes easier to tie this thing around. And where people become, you do not like see yourself as not just part of the system, because the system is what determines what or what not.
Yeah, not an individual.
Not an individual.
No
then
matter how
it becomes
powerful.
easier to start solving most of these issues.
All right, Dr. Nwokolo, as we try to come into this, I want us to go into the meat of this matter. Talk to me about how crowdfunding platforms could actually be used to raise money for terrorists, and how sports betting could also be used to raise money for terrorism. I mean, I'm just trying to understand how somebody could want to do that when there should be a fear that if you try to pass through this, that you could be caught easily.
Okay, so let's take IPOB. IPOB is declared a terrorist group here in Nigeria.
Yeah.
But the next question is it the same in the US, in the UK, and other countries
Or Finland.
Or Finland, other friends of the of Nigeria? That's on one part. Now, if you go to the UK, if you Google in the, IPOB, Indigenous People of, is a registered organization, meaning they pay dues. So what could be regarded as crowdfunding could be dues they've been paying.
Okay, so it could actually be maybe terrorism financing, quote, from Nigeria.
From Nigerian
but once
point
it
of
gets
view,
to UK,
it's not.
It's maybe membership dues or so.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you now look at it now, but if you take other organizations like ISWAP, which we know is affiliated to ISIS, it becomes a different thing, because the globe, almost every country, apart from maybe even Syria, sees it as, even Iran sees it as a terrorist group. They will fight against it.
Yeah,
but
because their own system actually kicks against.
Has already flagged it. So for us to even do more, we need to push it in that direction. But it now becomes even a fundamental moral issue if how many Nigerians sees IPOB as a terrorist group. So that needs to be proven.
Well, the courts have declared them one. So, but how about the issues of sports betting, which is domestic in nature? I mean, we have lots of sports betting firms, companies, and lots of Nigerians, especially young people, interested. How could terrorists be moving funds through this network?
So, a system where you have members who, now remember that these things are ideological issues, where somebody wholly believes that what they are doing is right. They are fighting a just cause. Defining a just cause is different now. So they could have members who are looking for, because for them, the most terrorism financing is about raising money to support the activities of the group.
Yeah.
So which could include extortion, which could include kidnapping, which could even taxation, which could other forms of cobblering up a place and taking over the natural resources in those places, and so on and so forth. Now, if they have members who they could move money to, and now say, okay, because money is what they are looking. So if they're not getting through membership, they need to get it through other means, which could means, okay, we need to get our members to continue to be on this platform and continue to bet, hoping to win. So they use all these kind of platforms to try to raise money. And that's why when I raised the issue of money laundering, imagine a situation where they want to clean their money and they find a businessman and move the money through the businessman who may not understand what is going on, that he's actually helping terrorists to transfer money or
so
to do business.
It may be unknowingly.
Unknowingly, he's doing it.
Okay, interested.
So these are part of the things. But if you have a system where you're a businessman and your business, your turnover is about 100,000 a year, and suddenly you're doing 1 million, and we cannot see how your goods are coming in and going out. We can't see your ledger, because how many businesses in Nigeria have ledger where they put what they sold and what they received? No.
And of course, this terrorism may want to exploit those kind of people, especially people who have merchandise also selling hundreds of millions in a day. So they just come through you and say, can you help us
within areas where they hold sway, and that's what they do.
Okay, now talk to us. What's the ultimate aim of a terrorist when he or she moves funds through a particular system? What exactly do they intend to do with those funds when they are able to get them off the system, whether through crowdfunding, through sports betting or other platforms?
Two critical things. They need to maintain the activities. And to maintain the activities means they need to pay for, do you know terrorist group at times even lend members to another group. There were times that we discovered that ISWAP actually sent some of their members to fight for Ansuri in Kaduna, and they paid for it.
That's Ansaru.
In Kaduna, and they paid for it. So you find out that monies they make, why they need money is that they need money to sustain their activities. And to sustain these activities, they need that money. And they find means of getting those funds into their purse just to continue to pay their members and as well buy weapons. So these are the two main things. Run your activities, which will include buying weapons and maintaining your membership.
Yeah,
people who are
paying salaries. Because
exactly.
I remember there was a time in the north when people preferred to, in the northeast, people were going to go and enroll into these terrorist groups because they were paying more than the government.
So let's be practical here. If you're a young man, you can't earn a living. You don't even know if you, in the next 3 months, if you're going to see 10,000 naira, and people are offering you 100,000 a month, you must be either a good Christian or a good Muslim, not accept it.
Or a patriot, actually.
Or a patriot, not accept it.
All right, as we try to round off the conversation, talk to me as to what we could do with this sort of information. The Office of the National Security Advisor, ONSA, is the clearinghouse for this kind of information. What should they be doing to prevent movement of terrorist financing through, whether crowdfunding, sports betting, or other means? What should be the checks we should put in place to prevent this loophole?
First, I think we need to look ourselves in the face and say, what's the political way to want to do it? Once we get that right, the political will must be there. We don't want to know who is going to affect, but the political will must be there to tackle it. If we get there, the political will cascade down to how we work with the banks. KYC must be activated. Banks must know their customers.
Yeah, I thought the CBN had given them that as a guideline.
But to what extent do they implement that? That's the next question. That is very important too. There should be a synergy between all these our intelligence and security organizations. They must work together. And three, the loophole between money laundering and terrorism financing must be closed. And closing it means that we need to look ourselves in the face and ask ourselves, the problem with our corruption culture, how do we deal with it? To allow the loopholes to be covered, we need to deal with the issue of corruption. Because we are looking at sports betting, we are looking at crowdfunding. We are not even looking at estates where people are pushing money into and nobody knows who owns them. So these are if you work on that. Yes, I love some of the legislations that are coming up. But this is that the legislation does not work alone. It does not work in isolation. The legislation must be implemented by people. And once you're able to do this, is another way. And then fifth, and which I think is very critical, there are some of issues that we look at, and we've been fighting against them using kinetic approach. But these are non-kinetic approach that will bring down the tempo in the country. And I will keep saying it. Some of the issues that we have, conflict issues, insecurity, are issues of exclusion, marginalization, and so on. And most of these issues can be dealt with politically. Right. It will bring down the tempo, we will start reconciling differences, and it will help us to know which ones that we cannot fight and find another alternative means of fighting them.
And then, of course, I expected you to add that of the political parties. When you have big donors, I mean, sending them monies when they can't explain their source of wealth, should the political parties be accepting those monies, or shouldn't they cooperate with security agencies to say, look, we've been receiving some funding from this person, we don't know what exactly he's looking for?
It's very funny that after our 2023 election, I've not seen any of the parties declare how much they spent, how much they receive and how much they spend.
Well,
and
except maybe for one of the candidates, Peter Obi, but not the party.
But not the party. That was how much he spent for his own election. So these things are very critical, you know. And I think if we have a good system where most of these things are logged in, and then especially our national identification should be flagged. You know, we have NIM, we have all sorts of ones, and the new one is even coming up.
There's a new one that's coming up.
So these things should work very well, you know. You travel abroad, you see the way it works. I was a student in Belgium. The first time my elder brother sent me money from the US, the money was stopped.
So you may even see it, but you can't withdraw.
I couldn't withdraw it because the bank said, I said, this is for he gave me all my upkeep and so on. You know, so, but that's the way the system works.
All right, so how do we ensure that our institutions also partner with their international, with other countries quickly to be able to see how we harness the advantages that come with international networking?
First, we need to show that we are ready to work. For instance, the period the UAE made that declaration, we never acted until this year. And if I'm a partner and I gave you such intelligence, you never acted, why would I give you again?
That's about funding through BDCs.
Exactly.
And all of that.
So these are the kind of things. And when we hear such a thing, it's not good to rush to start acting. We take our time, do our own investigation. But the need to act is very important. And most importantly, as much as we can, there are information that you keep because you need to keep them, you don't need to share them. But the ones that are not non-essential that the citizens should know, please, they should be shared, because what you're doing is that you're using that to raise the confidence of the people that the state is actually working. Because if you lose trust of your people, you can't get things work.
All right, we must thank you so much. Dr. Ndubuisi Nwokolo is a managing partner at Nextier. He oversees Nextier security, peace, and development focus. We must thank you so much for your immense wealth of knowledge, and we hope to have you here some other time to help us understand. Well, just before we go, the Nigerian government owes every Nigerian the opportunity to live in a country that is trustworthy, that our systems work, and of course, that we will ensure that we are trusted by international partners too abroad. And of course, for those who are funding terrorism, well, the law will soon catch up with you, because there's been no benefit to the country, and of course, it keeps dragging us down.